Welcome to the Love That Guy podcast. We are your hosts. I'm Ronnie Gene Blevins.
And this is Brendan Reynolds.
He got third all for billing at the end of each picture. That don't really mean much, he would say with a grin. But he held my hand tight when he poured his name out. Only 4 or 5 names down below Errol Flynn.
We are the show that celebrates the journeyman actors, the actors we all know and love, and even though we might not always know their names, we inevitably see them in film and television and think to ourselves, love that guy. Our next guest is a Texas boy, a super talented guy that I had the good fortune of working with a few years back. He won the Young Artist Award at the age of 14 with his breakout role in Man Without a Face. He made his bones in the darker roles and quickly became recognized as an actor with pathos and intensity. He's blown us away in movies like Terminator 3, Bully, and In the Bedroom, and most recently, what Josiah Saw in Fear the Walking Dead. Welcome to the show, an actor that's always inspired us, the great Nick Stahl. Nick, how you doing, buddy?
Good. Thanks for having me, guys.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, man. So you're in Austin?
I am. Yeah. I moved here about a year and a half ago from LA. Yeah.
And you moved there for the show that you were working on, or no?
No, actually. That was kind of not connected to the move. I had kind of been wanting to get out of LA for a while. And it never really felt like home to me. And I think, there's a lot of actors in LA that can probably relate to that, but it always felt like I was like passing through. So I felt like I was passing through for about 22 years there. So I finally moved and I don't know, Austin, I have a kid and it seemed a little more family, a little more, kind of, I don't know, grounded in some way, like a cool new home base.
So when you moved to Austin, because I talk to you sometimes about your experience out there. When you moved to Austin, were you like, after you got adjusted, were you like, shit, what took me so long? This is fantastic.
Kind of, yeah. Well, so I had attempted to move out here once before, about 13 years ago, and it was before the self-tape audition took over. And so I attempted to do that very thing. I was like, why do I need to be in LA? I can move to Austin, just put myself on tape and send those in. And I ended up coming here having my daughter really pretty quickly. And that basically looked like me flying back to LA like every week or two. Wow. It was just way too much. So I ended up moving back to LA. So this is actually my second attempt to relocate to Austin. So, and now it's like, it's all audition tapes, as you know, like you can kind of be anywhere.
Yep.
Just send tapes in. So that's kind of what I'm doing now.
And it's something kind of like empowering, like inside of you that's like, no, I'm just doing shit on my own terms,
Right. You don't have to be here.
Yeah. Although now there's like this, 3 actors out there are complaining about, I miss the in-person experience. Like, and they're like, well, maybe we'll offer some sort of in-person. Like, get the fuck out of here. You're telling me that you strived with 1 or 2 times to do the audition in front of a disgruntled casting director, but all of a sudden, if you have 100 times to do it in the comfort of your own home, you're going to fall apart. Hey, come on, man.
Yeah. No, I agree. I would say I prefer the self tape. There is, I mean, that the counter argument that, I guess would be just that occasionally, I'm sure you've experienced like that kind of in person, kind of like with live theater or something where you can kind of, you feel that little bit of magic or something that happens where everyone kind of connects in the room and stuff like that. But I think that's kind of the exception to the rule, for the most part. I think it's such a luxury to be able to do it over and over again, like you said, and get it where you want to, where you want it to be. So
I was never able to contend with the nerves. I mean, the idea is I would just have to the repetition I would have to have just gone so far into the repetition that my preparedness just edged out my incredibly intense nerves. And even then, you would have a situation where I would be married to a choice. I'm doing this audition one time, and I think it was for Paul Haggis, which I want to talk to you about, Paul Haggis. But and Paul kept redirecting me, but I had done it like 100 times, like where I got up on this one line and I like turn around, and then all of a sudden he's telling me to redirect. And I keep getting up and taking a right on this same line. And I'm like, oh, and it became evident to everyone in the room. Right. Oh, he's fucking rehearsed. He's too rehearsed.
Your muscle memory took over.
Yeah. I want to, if you'll indulge me, I want to talk just a little bit, a little origin story here. So your first massive movie was Man Without a Face, right? And were you living in Texas when you auditioned for that?
I grew up in Dallas, so I did a tape actually. Sent into to them from Dallas, and that's where I got cast. So.
Wow! And what was that like? Did you audition a lot of times? Where'd you get like?
So it was kind of a cool story. Like when I was 10. My first big audition was for this Disney movie that Reese Witherspoon was in, and it filmed in Africa, and it was like this, and I had done 2 TV movies up to this point, playing the son of, it was Pamela Reed or like Robert Urich, their sons or whatever, and so this was my first like big feature opportunity, and I did a tape from Dallas for this Disney thing, and they flew me out to LA to screen test for it. It was like me and like one other kid, and my agent from Dallas came with me and stuff, and it was like this big thing or whatever, and I didn't get it, and I was devastated. I was really, I was just, it just kind of like took the wind out of my sails. Months later, Mel Gibson's company contacts me in Dallas, and they had seen this screen test that I did, and they asked me if I could read for them. So I did a tape, and a couple of weeks later, they flew me out, and I expected to audition with him or something like that, but instead I just went to lunch with him and the producer, and we were sitting there eating lunch on Warner Brothers lot, and he's like, so you want to do the movie? And
Nice.
I was like, yeah,
sure.
So that was the process. It wasn't, I auditioned one time. Yeah.
Wow.
Nice.
And then there's such a good movie. And was that Mel's, that wasn't his first movie, was it?
That was after Braveheart?
That was his first thing he directed.
Before,
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
That was the one before Braveheart.
Right.
And then what an experience to cut your teeth on, right?
Yeah, wow.
And you get this, this movie, and it's like so well received. And then how old are you at that point? How old are you at that point?
I was 12.
12.
I was 12. So it came out when I was like 14, I think. But I was 12 when we made it, yeah.
And you get all these accolades for it, right? And then eventually you're getting like this, people are identifying you as this kind of this young, like edgy actor, right? And you're probably in your life just trying to work out what your identity is outside of the business, right? Like it must have been just such a head trip for you.
Yeah. No, it actually was, and I would say I could identify a lot more of the impact of all of that in hindsight, you know. So in the moment, I could tell you I was an uncomfortable kid, and I don't know if that had anything to do with acting, to be honest. I mean, I had kind of a tumultuous house growing up and stuff like that, and I had some issues as a kid.
Sure.
I had a lot of social anxiety, a lot of I was kind of a fearful kid, and for some reason when I I could, you know, I took to acting and I was able to do it and I just had this talent for it, you know. And I felt really comfortable doing that. But as soon as the cameras cut and we were just kind of hanging out on set, I was extremely uncomfortable in my skin, you know,
Wow.
and you know, to be totally honest, like it took me probably, you know, well into my 20s before I started to realize that I didn't really have much of an identity outside of acting, you
Wow.
know,
Wow.
that really, it consumed me in a way. Like I had a relationship to acting and film that I don't feel was really all that healthy, you know. It was kind of disproportionately, you know, made up who, you know, how I felt about myself. So if I didn't get this thing that I really wanted or whatever, it was just, you know,
Yeah.
I took it, I took it to heart, you know.
Yeah.
And you know, and then, you know, and the world was great if I got the role that I wanted and I was doing it and it validated me and things like that. So, but again, you know, it wasn't going through that stuff as a teenager, you know, it wasn't real. It was hard to maybe get a read on that stuff, but
Right.
it wasn't
Yeah.
until later that I looked back and I'm like, oh, that's sort of why I had an issue with this, or, you know, some problems socially in this way. It's because
Right.
you know, so it was definitely had a big impact on my life getting involved in film at that age.
Right. Because
Yeah,
we
it's tough.
like processing shit as an adolescent is hard to begin with.
You don't even know who you
what I mean?
are. Yeah.
And and then like
Right.
just like achieving stardom. In
Yeah.
addition to that, it's a fucking head trip, man. Because then you go on to do
Yeah.
the movie with Susan Sarandon and Sam Shepard, Safe Passage. That was after that? Yes.
Yeah.
Um,
That was after. Yeah, I was 15.
and now, so you're like, they're talking about, oh, fucking Nick Stahl. He's the guy. He's the next guy, right? And then you're flying high.
Mm-hmm.
Is that you're on that set? And then do you even understand? Can you even process? As like I'm sure like a Nick Stahl in his 40s can, how cool it was to be on set with like Sam Shepard and Susan Sarandon.
That's wild.
Are you?
Yeah, no, I could in a way. You know, I started to get really invested in films from, you know, starting out, you know, at age 12 or so. I started to watch Sean Penn movies and started to watch, you know, like, you know, Apocalypse Now and all these, you know, heavier films, you know, for that age, and those became my heroes, you know, Robert De Niro and these guys. And so I was very aware of who Susan Sarandon and Sam Shepard were, um, you know, and that's kind of how things started to roll out for me from that age. You know, my mom was kind of waiting for the other shoe to drop and for me to like lose interest in it, or kind of for my luck to run out a little bit. You know, she was just trying to be realistic about it and sort of, and I was having a very different experience. You know, I was putting all my eggs in this basket. I gave up on school, you know, for at you know, that age. I was like, nope, school's not for me. I'm not, you know. And in my mind it was just like, I knew I knew that I wanted to do it when I got older. So but yeah, from you know, like that, you know, those films, you know, and the film with Susan Sarandon, and then I just kept booking these jobs where I was working with all these amazing actors, you know. And
Yeah.
yeah, so it just really good fortune, you know,
Yeah.
from a young age. Yeah.
Yeah. What do you like? Do you remember gleaning anything from Sam Shepard? Anything specific? Just that he was kind of cool and.
Sam Shepard was really cool. He was I don't think it's any secret, I guess, that he was kind of a troubled guy. You know, he had like all of his plays, and I was reading all of his plays when we were doing the movie.
Wow.
And they were amazing. You know, I was like, oh my God, like he you know, I had never read anything like that, like theater, you know. And and it seemed to me that he kind of was a lot of the characters he was writing about,
Right.
He was an insomniac who kind of had a dark energy that he kind of walked around with a lot of times. Was a lovely guy,
Sure.
and was generous, but you could tell he had
Conflict.
demons, and it was interesting, to see him work, and so yeah. Anyway.
Do you like when you're kind of, I mean, I know it was before social media, so it's like the understanding of this impact that you're having, your work is having on like pop culture, it's a little harder to come by, but I know you're getting this overwhelming sense of like how you're perceived. You're, like I said, you're just perceived as this young kind of cool actor who's on the rise. Did you ever feel, because you weren't operating from a technique, you were just kind of blind impulse and raw figuring it out, right? I mean,
yeah, pretty much.
Right.
Yep. I was kind of winging it. Yeah.
And did you ever kind of figure like, did you ever think to yourself, well, shit, I'm perceived as this guy, who's on the come, and I'm doing these fucking cool parts, and you're working hard in the moment, but you're not necessarily, you don't have the benefit of technique because you're a fucking kid. What are you supposed to do? You know what I mean? Did you ever kind of feel this need to, well, maybe I need to to sustain this. Do I need to get some technique? Or he's like,
yeah. It's a good question. I mean, the short answer is no. Like, and there's a bit to unpack in that, actually, because the truth is, like, I kind of relied on that thing where I just sort of showed up and did it, and I was getting cast, and there was part of me that started to, like, at that age where, again, I didn't feel like I had a much else in my life that I was like really good at, and all of a sudden I was getting this praise and this validation for this thing, and I started to take pride in the fact that I didn't take any lessons or techniques or have any classes. I started to it was kind of a badge of honor for me,
right.
The truth is, like, I'm much more interested now in learning about technique and learning about and taking classes and things like that. I still haven't done it, but I want to. I ordered some books about some acting books that I got recently, and I started to. I'm wanting to learn more, because the truth is, like, I had always kind of relied on instincts and things like that, but I don't know. There was part of me that felt like it could only take me so far, and I wanted, and like, I didn't put a whole lot of work into it as a kid, to be honest. Like, the hours you work on sets and things like that. Like, while you're working, it's definitely a job. I mean, it's a workload, but as far as preparation and like the work I was putting into the characters and things like that, I mean, I didn't really do all that much, and there was part of me, I think, that started to feel like, God, if people only knew how
right.
how this was like easy for me. If people only knew how, like, little effort I'm putting into this, like, I'm busted,
Right.
I felt kind of like a fraud a little bit, because it was just something I was good at doing. But I feel like I'm much more interested in like growing as an actor now, because I mean, I look back on films that I did, and if I see something I did in the past, I mean, I see flaws all over the place. I'm
Interesting.
like, it's clear to me I didn't have technique, or I never really have. I mean, it's clear to me, but
yeah. Well, I see it as like you were excelling at the things that really couldn't be taught, which is like this
talent.
fucking talent and inner life, and like just the ability to not, maybe you have growing up is hard on everyone. It's just a spectrum of how hard, and if they can turn on a camera and you can just think about the sadness, then you're fucking, you're already doing, like 80% there,
But I imagine that the technique must protect you guys too, because you're so vulnerable when you're in that headspace. I'm sure.
Right. Like you can rely on it if things go sideways. I mean, yeah, I think there's an element of that,
Yeah.
It's interesting.
I'm a repetition guy.
I don't
I got to do the lines over and over and over again, probably because I have comprehension issues. And then I got to like throw it away,
Yeah.
But,
right.
Yeah. You were in the Thin Red Line?
Oh yeah, I remember.
Were you?
Mm-hmm.
You made the
Malick.
cut?
Yeah. I made the cut. I was, I'm not in much of it at the end of the day, but yeah.
Well, nobody's was that like.
Nobody's
man?
in much of it.
That was probably one of the most. That was probably the most like formative experience as a young actor because I was 17 years old, going over to Australia with Sean Penn. Again, I was very well versed in who these actors were, and these were my heroes, and went over there and went through boot camp and stuff.
How old were you? I'm sorry, brother. How old?
17.
Okay.
17.
Wow. Okay.
So I was the kid, who was showing up with my mom, traveling with her. And, not wanting to be, I was like, I wanted to go out with these guys and drink Australian beer and do it, which is, basically what I did,
Nice. And,
I kind of I'm like, I'll see you later, Mom. I'm going to go out, and it was, man, I kind of grew up on that movie, to be honest.
Wow. Yeah.
I was, like I mentioned before, man, I was not socially real well equipped. Just like child act, I was like this kind of isolated kid who was now in this like social situation with all these adults, and it was actually a really painful experience.
Really?
But by the end of it, I mean, I grew a lot, and but it was kind of like being the kid with just a bunch of older brothers and getting and feeling like the kid, feeling like, like I can't be a part of this, and I want to be, and trying to prove myself to these guys. It was pretty wild.
Some serious legends in that cast. That was wild.
Yeah. So you're you're a year too young. I mean, maybe you're 18, then all your problems are solved. Because you're able to
1 year exactly.
Exactly. Is it true that Adrian Brody was the star of that originally and never saw the light of day?
He had a little arc in it, but no, he was in it.
I think Nick probably knows, but
he had top billing.
Oh right, yeah.
He had the number one over every So it was it's my understanding that like Terrence Malick had a 6-hour movie once when we finished filming that it was he had 6 hours and Fox said you got to chop this in half. And the two main characters were Jim Caviezel and Adrian.
Yeah.
And they had these like two parallel stories. And so basically, because he had to chop it in half, he had to make a decision like, am I going to follow this guy or that guy? Went with the Caviezel storyline and had to call up Adrian and say, hey, you're basically cut out of the entire movie.
Heartbreaking, man.
Yeah,
he was just getting started.
That's a hard thing to bounce back from internally, right? Like, if you're Adrian, I imagine. Did you find working with Malick to be freeing or maddening or?
I didn't. I had a good experience with him. He's an eccentric dude. I'm sure that a lot of the Hollywood folklore stories about him are true. He's a unique artist and mind, and the truth is, like, there were so many guys there, and he's the type of director that would would just take the camera and just think of something. Think of like, okay, Ronnie, go out there and, just like go out in that field and do something and grab your weapon and, and he would write a scene. Like you would see him after lunch or something, and he would hand you like a piece of paper, and during lunch he like wrote a little snippet for you to do, and so because of that, actors figured out that it was kind of out of sight, out of mind. Like if you literally didn't like cross his line of vision all day, like he wouldn't think of you. And if you were next to him, hanging out with him, all of a sudden he was coming up with stuff for you to do. So you had all these actors like vying for his attention, essentially, like trying to get, get more screen time.
It's like purely visual,
right? And which kind of, I imagine, creates this kind of a weird competitive thing. Yeah.
It definitely, it had that vibe for sure.
Yeah. When I also noticed when you're shooting war movies, I did this movie Emancipation that came out last year. It was a big epic Civil War film, right? And if you got someone, a visionary like Bob Richardson, which was shooting it, there's this whole life that's going on, and the onus is on everyone, the actors, the extras. If you're on this landscape, which goes on for miles. Yep. You might be inclined to think, since they're only shooting this like little section here with like Will and Ben Foster, that like, but when they call action, you engage in your life. Yeah. And then someone like Bob Richardson, and Antoine, but Bob Richardson would see this a lot. Like he'd be like, "Oh no, shit! Look what's going on over there," And I was able to kind of get some moments where it was like a shift, like like, oh, let's pick up what's going on over there with like with Ronnie or like Stephen Ogg, and we get a similar type thing, but not like you're vying for the attention, just living the life of actually being in a battle or whatever the scene was, because the visual landscape is so big,
right? Each frame.
Yeah. So
for sure.
How old are you, brother, when you get Terminator 3?
21, I guess.
21, man.
That's a fun movie.
And then, oh my God, like, okay, so what's this process like?
What's the process?
Yeah, the audition. Like, did you audition or was it straight off?
Yeah, no, I auditioned. I did like 6 screen tests.
Wow.
Yeah, it was which, so I fought hard for that one. That was the biggest audition process, the most intensive audition process I'd ever done to this day. And I was just, I was over the moon, when I got it. But at the same time, I was like, why did they need 6 auditions?
Right. Right.
I was like, was he not, I was like, what, it kind of, as actors, we're just constantly,
sure.
Okay, I'll speak for my, I can, get in my head about like, is there something I was not doing to convince him before or whatever, but I tried to put all that aside and go into film, and we filmed for 4 months, and it was this, they just, I had never been a part of a movie with that much money, where you can do takes all day long. I was like, this is amazing. You can just work on the scene until you get it perfect. It's kind of like doing audition tapes, like we were saying, that's just disposable money. Yeah, man. So,
and then you're fucking John Connor, man.
Yeah, that's a
like
iconic role.
Like, what is that like? That's got to be a trip, dude. Like that gets you other stratosphere, right?
Yeah, no, it was.
You're like, what do we always say, dude? It was a trip.
Yeah, no, it absolutely. I mean, like Terminator 2 was one of my favorite movies growing up, man. and it's still one of my favorite like action movies. Yeah, man. It was pretty surreal. It was, and I don't have many like regrets in the business, but if I could do that one again, I would, to be honest, because it's just youth is wasted on the young, man. I was
True.
it was like I don't know if you ever look back on things and you're like, man, I wasn't maybe as present as I should have been, or seized the opportunity as much, and things like that. And that was, that was one of those times for me where I was just, my head was elsewhere,
Yeah.
And amazingly, my head was elsewhere. But that being said, I mean, I had a blast, and was like just thrilled to be, part of it. So
sure. I mean, yeah, and they don't make it easy for us, right? With all the all the external stuff outside of everything that happens between, action and cut. It's just it's a lot. It's just a trip, man. It's a trip, and it's hard to just like, it's like a constant reminder, just here and now, because it's like really at your core, all you want to think about is your character, how you can be happening to the scene instead of letting the scene happen to you. You know what I mean? Because I felt like it took me decades to really put it all together. You know what I mean? Yeah. You talked about like relying on the preparation and technique. Like I felt like because I was just a green actor, I didn't start young and I just started studying. I always felt this insecurity. So I was like, okay, well, just go to the lines and do the repetition and then like work backwards. You know what I mean? So like any sort of work of like what the character is feeling internally or an arc or, that all came like after the repetition, you know what I mean? But it took like so long. I felt like I was fucking just like almost like you hear people say, I just want to be in service of the story. I want to be in service of the story, which is great. But you say these things and you think these things, and then you can find yourself in a situation where you're not happening to the material. You're just trying to get by inside of the material, And so I think it took me a lot of only maybe in the last few years have I been able to put it all together, and it's freeing, to do that.
Yeah.
But for the record, I never saw a false moment in anything you've done, and it's always been. Yeah. I remember when I first, and I've told you this before, but when I first saw you in Bully, I thought, who the fuck is this guy?
What a powerhouse movie,
right? Were you guys was shooting Bully as dark as it felt watching Bully?
Yeah, it was dark. Definitely dark to watch.
You know what? It kind of was. Yeah, it kind of was.
You shot in Florida?
That was wild. What? Say it again.
Was it in Florida where you guys shot?
Yeah, it was right down where this. I mean, it was right down where this murder
where it happened
took place. Yeah. Right in the town. And that was kind of a different time where you didn't need to shoot in Georgia to double for Florida and stuff like we got now. And there's just something about filming in Florida in the state. Something, but it's almost like you can see the the humidity on screen or something. You can just feel that unique energy that area of the state has. I mean, and to me it was it reminded me a little bit of the suburb I grew up in, but we were a bunch of kids smoking weed and drinking and just we'd be getting high and stuff before filming.
Wow, it's like neorealism.
We were just, and there was a lot of people, like drama, drama and fights and
wow.
and Larry and Brad and like they they were button heads and just it was like this. It was pretty wild, and I talked to Kelly Garner, from Josiah.
Yep.
And it was kind of funny because that was her first movie when she was a kid. She was there with her mom. She was like 17. And she told me that she just assumed that all movie sets were just insane like that, because her first experience. She's like, oh my God, like Hollywood's crazy. Like it really is. And it wasn't until later that she kept working that she was like, oh wait, that was a unique experience. That was, movie sets are not like that in general.
Right. Larry Clark was kind of a radical filmmaker, it seems like.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean,
he did all those movies.
And from his perspective, I wonder if he was like, hey, most of these kids are over 18.
Right.
You know what I mean? I sometimes wonder if his if he earns every inch of his reputation, or if he was like, well, fuck, everyone's over 18. You're I mean, was he exploitive? Did he earn his reputation of,
I had a good relationship with Larry, and he's reserved. He's a quiet guy. So he kind of sits back and, I always like to get a little, I don't know. Sometimes I'll get insecure, and you need something from a director like, hey, that was good, man. Keep doing that thing.
Right.
He doesn't give you that. Like if you don't hear anything from Larry,
that's good.
It's a thumbs up, like if you hear nothing. And I wasn't exactly typecast for that role. I mean, it was a kind of a departure for me, and I'm kind of this, whatever, nice kid, and was not getting cast as bad guys or like bullies and stuff, which, I kind of am now, which, as an adult, but
likely because of bully.
Wasn't.
Right.
So, a little bit, I think so, actually, there's, but I was really intimidated to do that role. I mean, I was like, man, I really didn't know how I was going to pull it off believably.
Yeah.
And so I was really looking to Larry for like, hey man, tell me that was good. Tell me I'm on the right track. And I learned that about him, that like, if he's just quiet, man, he just sits back and he's very visual, and he's not the best with actors, to be honest. I mean, he doesn't, I know that's a really tough skill, but he that's not his forte. He doesn't know how to communicate with actors that well.
Right.
But I think he pushes the envelope as an artist. You look at his old photographs, his old books, Tulsa, and these things where they're extremely dark, edgy photos with a lot of young people. There was nothing illegal going on, but he definitely he wants clothes to come off. I mean, he just
provocative.
And we were of age and stuff like that. I was uncomfortable with that, but like you see your two castmates getting naked, and you're like, well, shit, I don't want to wimp out,
Sure.
Now I got it, and it was there was actually something kind of like liberating about it, to be honest. Like it was sort of it was kind of freeing to do something like that. And haven't really done anything quite like it since. But I would not say that Larry Clark is exploitive. No.
Yeah, he's just he's a filmmaker. It's no different than what like a Sean Baker does like today, right? It's just real people, real experiences. It's not new. It is original because a lot of people are scared to do it, Malick did it, and I mean, even Spielberg did, I know you're a fan of Jaws, you know what I mean? But he was all about those real moments, So Todd Fields, you work with him, or have you seen his new movie Tar?
Yeah,
I haven't seen it yet. Yeah. What'd you think?
It's impressive, man. It's a story about a world that I know nothing about, so it was, I felt like it was above my pay grade a little bit as far as some of the
right, just the language,
esoteric. I mean, but beautiful. I mean,
so good.
He's kind of a new Terrence Malick to me. Just makes these gorgeous films that look like paintings.
Beautiful.
And then Cate Blanchett, of course, is just captivating to watch, and so worth seeing for sure.
In the Field was great too. In the bedroom. Yeah, with Todd.
Bedroom.
Yeah. You had a good experience with him on that?
Yeah, I did. I really did. Yeah.
That's cool.
He's a guy who can communicate with actors, you know.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't realize for a while what kind of skill that was, you know. And because he's an actor himself, I think he's great at it. Like, but I think that it appears to be like one of the hardest things, I think, for a director. I would say is to really communicate with us, because we're complex creatures sometimes,
right?
You know?
Well,
and fragile ones too.
And they don't often know what they want, so they're posturing, right?
Yeah.
They're kind of I don't know if they're faking it, but instead of like so oftentimes I'll see these I'll be on these sets, and then they're like, and they're like placing us. I'm like, what is happening here? Like, why don't you just like see what we do organically? You might find that it's pretty interesting.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, you're going to go here and then you're going to come in on this line.
Right.
And I get that if you're doing something that's like very structured, like an episodic, you don't have the luxury of time. But how do you process? I mean, I imagine, for a lot of actors, I never wanted to direct. Right. To me, it seemed like that sounded like a disaster. Like, fuck that. But that was 10 years ago. And then I would take these roles, and I would not be happy with my performance often. And many times I own that. Right. Mm-hmm. But then I would go, I got to fight for this performance, right? And particularly since, I play a lot of villains, and we can so easily fall into the trap of just being this one note fucking character, right? Mm-hmm. So then I'd be like, well, okay, so I have to like fight for the humanity of the guy, right? And even if you fight for the humanity and you have insistence upon, listen, you give me this moment here, this moment there, if they can paint the picture however they want, and we as the actors got to own that performance, right? Has that troubled you throughout your career? Like, just the fact that it's such a director's medium? And if so, has that ever made you want to direct?
Yeah, well, I mean, I was kind of with you for a long time. Like, I didn't have a lot of interest in directing until I started writing a bit, and then I was like, well, why is that's weird? Did you see that?
Yeah,
my camera's.
Wow, that's cool. Kind of cool.
I like it.
That's bizarre. What was that? I guess because I'm leaning back.
Moved.
Anyway,
you talk about directing.
I'm learning about technology.
Yeah, see,
in real time.
That's the AI taking over,
right? He wants to direct.
I was like, if I write this thing and I really and I want to tell this specific story, like another director's gonna screw this up, maybe, and
right.
And I had like I was really lucky to work with some great directors young, and it took a while before I like I feel like before I encountered a director who I just didn't care for that much.
Right.
And then I started to see like, oh yeah, like, there's certain things as actors that we need, a certain amount of autonomy, some, guidance, but it's I mean, yeah, it's definitely tough, but I agree with you. It's like, let us show you something first. Maybe you'll find something in performance that will help you as well.
Right.
But coming in here with this, very rigid, frame of like, this, A, B, and C, it's very black and white, and this, preconceived, idea that the actors have to conform to that is less collaborative, less creative to me. But anyway.
So I met Nick. We did a movie that he was the star of a few years back called What Josiah Saw. That was directed by Vincent Grashaw, and you were so good in that, man. So good. And it was so fun watching you work.
Thanks.
And then I think we like wrapped that, and then like I'm on the I'm on the like one of these lots, Warner Brothers or something, and then I see Nick there. Like, hey, what are you doing? Oh, I'm doing this thing. Turns out we're playing brothers on this TV show that we just gotten back from shooting this movie.
Yes.
So,
small world.
Yeah. Is it true, my brother, that you turned down Crash?
Yeah, it is true. It is true.
Now, why do you turn down Crash?
I didn't like it. I didn't like the script.
Yeah.
And I had a lot more options at that time than I would say I do now.
Right.
Ryan
Philippe's part.
It changes every.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. I thought that, to be honest, man, I thought that was one of those. I still feel that way about the movie. I'm so glad I didn't do it. I thought it was. I feel like once a year there's a movie that comes around that like fools everybody. To be honest, like
and that was the one.
I kind of feel that way
think
too.
it was Crash that year. It was one of those. I mean, I really do. I think there's a movie that people like jump on the bandwagon, and it's like there's like almost social pressure to
it was all marketing
to like praise it. And I still feel like that's not a good movie.
It's a dubious Oscar winner, I would say.
What do you mean? What do you think?
Well, I think I've heard a lot of people say that about it. Yeah, in hindsight,
like emotionally manipulative,
a little bit contrived. Socially, social issues.
Contrived I think is a good word, and manipulative. I feel like those are both good descriptives for it. Like I don't know. Yeah, it doesn't do it for me, but that being said, I feel like whatever it was, I was kind of arrogant though at that time too, because like there was something about that early success that I had, and that was in that same time. Like I had just done Terminator, Carnival, and these things all in one year.
Carnival is so great.
And
forgot about that.
And that's when that opportunity came. And so I mean, what a great problem to have. But I mean, there's I like if I was offered that today, I probably wouldn't turn it down. But
right,
different time,
Yeah, that's interesting. Are you finding? You're a little younger than me. I think you're and you're 43, right? Is it right?
43.
43.
Yep.
How are you enjoying the work these days? Do you more than ever?
Yeah, actually. Like, I took some time off, I think, from the business, like, for about 5 years. And as it turned out, that was an opportunity for me to kind of build a life outside of acting, and like I kind of mentioned before, I kind of needed to reestablish my relationship to the work, and today, it's a big part of my life. It's a big part of who I am, and it is part of my identity. At the same time, it's not everything for me, and I have other interests, and I have things that, and a byproduct of that is that I enjoy it more, like I actually find it a lot more fun. I look forward to working now a lot more. And like I said, I mean, I'm trying to get invested and kind of learn more about the craft, like for the first time in my life. And I just feel like, I don't know. It's more creative for me now.
There's in there a term for that, beginner's mind. Like you have the hunger of the, the hunger of the beginner. You know what I mean? That's the mic. Yeah, no, for sure, man. And has your daughter expressed any interest on getting into the biz,
the dark arts?
She has recently. Just in the past like 6 months, not necessarily like the business, but like acting.
Yeah.
Wow.
And I was clear with her. It's interesting how we kind of like play out our own, childhood experiences through our kids and stuff. And I was very clear with her that, like, if you want to get into this, like, you're going to take classes, you're going to get, all these things that I didn't do,
Right.
I was like, you're going to get, and because, it's just kind of, I guess it is because of, certain experiences that I had and actor friends that I had too. I saw that the ones that really stuck around, in the business and, were ones that had a real love for it. So I'm like, if you cultivate a love for this thing, I'm all about supporting you in any way that I can. But it's like,
right.
But there's it's such a weird time now too, with like with social media and like all this like insta fame stuff and fame for fame's sake, and it's seductive to kids, including my daughter. I mean, that's what they see. They see the beauty of these images, and without putting in work and without putting in, it's more about the results and not the process of it and things like that. And so, but it was only in the last like 6 months that she was expressing like some interest in like theater and things like that. And so, we'll see.
I feel like there's an inevitability about that. I
can see it with your son too.
My boy's 6. Our sons are best friends, right? And they're both 6.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
6, 7.
Oh,
and
cool.
Like now he just cannot be more disinterested in what I do, which is great. I don't really care. I don't care. No,
sure you don't.
But like, you know what I mean? Like he doesn't even like look sideways that I'll be on like the occasional thing, or you know what I mean? Not that I sit there and watch myself, but I think whatever the family business is, like the kids, they kind of rebuke it. They're like, no, but at some point they at least entertain it,
Yeah, sure.
They're
lucky to have you guys as mentors too, if they do get into it. That's a good fortune.
I think so.
Yeah.
But like
your son probably hasn't connected though, that he might have just started to connect that that's dad on screen,
right?
Right.
Yeah, like, he's connected. He's just he's not interested.
Doesn't care.
A buddy of ours is Sam Daly, and his dad is Tim Daly, and Sam's a fantastic actor, but I was like, I always try to look at the experience, how Leo might process everything a little bit through his eyes as a young kid. And I'm like, I mean, of course, his dad was on a fucking huge show. Yeah. So I'm no Tim Daly, but like I was like, how did you process that? And he's like, well, I thought everyone's parents were on TV. I thought everyone's dad was on TV.
His mom was an actor too.
But his mom's a great actress too. And then one time he says that one time like he was like in 8th grade, and then like these girls got all like, oh my God, that's the guy from Wings. And then he's like, and then he had this moment, oh, my dad's kind of cool, right? Was there a moment of like that with your daughter?
Yeah,
I'm sure. Yeah.
Where she registered like who you were?
Yeah, it was kind of it was kind of I don't remember one specific moment, but yeah, I definitely, as she got older, I become cooler in her mind.
Well, that's a good thing.
Yeah.
Occasionally one of her friends will be like, your dad, I saw him, whatever. And I think she thinks it's kind of cool. So
that's great.
So,
yeah.
It's kind of fun.
I mean, it's hard to like, as much as we want to protect them from the pitfalls and the inevitable chronic heartache, which is the business.
Sure.
It's hard to deny that if it's all going well, it's incredible. Right. And if you have any sort of like with me, my babysitter was cable. You know what I mean?
Yeah, same.
And so I just grew up dreaming about like fucking movies, and I read a real love affair with fucking movies. So, I always say that listen, he's 6. He doesn't need to make any big decisions anytime soon. But I always say, if he finds happiness, whatever it is, if he's fucking, if he's building houses or. My inclination is that it's whether it's my kid or your kid or it's in their blood a little more than
Oh, for sure.
Yeah. Then we might be willing to confront, but
yeah. She like my daughter too has gone with me to screenings of things where there's kids involved, like younger actors as well, and like that were her age, and that kind of inspired her too, because she's like, oh wait, that's that girl I was just talking to and hanging out with, and now I'm seeing her on the screen, and I think it kind of gave her the idea that this is possible. I could do this if I worked at it, kind of thing. And so yeah.
And what a beautiful thing to have that as a young kid, a teenager, like, you know what I mean? To have something you could really love. That's the only reason I would want it for my boy, is that it's like in passion. Spite of the whatever bullshit, like the love for it has been pure when it's, when it's all been going well, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's a beautiful thing. So I want to talk lastly about Let the Right Ones In, the show.
Let the Right One In. Yeah.
Sorry.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. How was that experience?
It was great. Yeah, it was great. It just got canceled, which sucks.
Okay.
It sucks more for the other cast members, because I wasn't in the second season anyway, so I'm like, oh, whatever. But I was kind of bummed out. I was bummed out for everybody else. But that it was a lot of fun to make, and I enjoy doing the role, doing another bad guy, another kind of but an interesting one.
Yeah. You guys shot in Atlanta or?
Yeah. No, it was New York.
Oh, wow.
Last year.
That's cool, man.
Yeah, so got to spend a lot of time there, which I always love as well. So
yeah.
Yeah.
Living out there or being out there, you realize how soft LA makes you, or anywhere else makes you, particularly in the winter, right?
Yeah.
Well,
very true.
My brother, I want to tell you, I want to tell you again, even though, like, when I talk about growing up watching people I loved, you were one of them. And then when I saw you in Bully, dude, you just broke my brain wide open, not to make you uncomfortable, with how fucking great you were. And to be able to eventually work with you on a couple things and become a friend, it'd be nice to we should stay in better contact. But man, I'm really a fan. I love that you did this. I'm grateful that you came on, and let's connect, man.
Yeah. Hey, likewise, by the way, man.
Cool.
Yeah, big fan of your stuff too, and thank you guys for having me on.
Yeah, thank you, Nick.
All right, my brother. All right, man. Have a great weekend. Talk soon, Bubba. All right.
Take care.
Cool.
Bye.
Sounds good.
All right.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.
Bye.